everyone. So I'm finally here with my June wrap up. I read about 9 books this month, and that was actually a lot for me. I did 2 graphic novels and a audiobook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the books that I first don't have with me and the books that I don't that I actually already filmed a video on for whatever reason. So the first 2 books I'm going to mention that I read this month were I Can't Make This Up, Life Lessons by Kevin Hart. I listened to that on audio for Book Swap-a-thon. And I also finished the book of poems, There Are More Beautiful Things Than Beyonce by Morgan Parker. You can see that video. I should upload that one before this. So it should be up and ready to go if you want to hear more about my thoughts on those 2 books. The third book I actually have with me is Singing Ain't Enough, and I did a review for this book. The author sent this book to me for review, so this review is up on my channel if you are interested. I gave this book 4 stars on Goodreads, in actuality like a 3.5, because we all know that Goodreads does not give decimals or half stars, whatever, and they should. Kevin Hart I gave 4 stars. Morgan Parker I gave 4 stars, but she's more of 3.5 as well. The next book I read that I don't have with me, and I almost forgot that I read it, it was Wives, Fiancés, and Side Chicks of Hotlanta by Sheree Whitfield. If you know anything about the Real Housewives reality TV show franchise on Bravo Network, you know that Sheree is one of the women who is on Real Housewives of Atlanta. She wrote a book, and it was pretty much drama filled, and it was everything I needed for the summer. At one point I was like guilty reading it. I was hate reading it at one point. So the book is about a girl named Sasha who is leaving college, decides to move to Atlanta to open up her clothing line. She wants to own a boutique in Atlanta called She by Sasha. If you know the show, you know that sounds very familiar. And you know, she gets caught up with some women there and some athletes there. I gave the book about 3 stars. It's not any great piece of literary fiction, but I don't think she wrote it to create that. Was it entertaining? Absolutely. However, one thing I found that was really problematic about the book was how she portrayed the gay best friend, which is how they portray gay men on that show anyways. Very stereotypical. He was only there to serve the plot line of Sasha, and how they just made him like extremely feminine. There's nothing wrong with feminine men, but how they just treated him as like, you know, their accessory. Like, I'm not really seeing him as like a full-fledged person, and that's exactly how he was in the book. Literally only there to serve Sasha's storyline. And of course, it has been like a major problem on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. So I was not shocked that that happened, and that was like the point. I was hate reading the book. I just very much disliked how they shaped that character. But would I say read it? Yeah, sure. If you want something light and fun to read this summer, I don't have it because I let a friend of mine borrow it. And I actually need to ask her if she's read it yet to see how that's going. All right, now into 2 books that I actually did not like for pretty much the same reasons. I have, and I feel like I'm going to disappoint you guys with these because I had high hopes. The graphic biography of Muhammad Ali and the graphic biography of Zora Neale Hurston. This one is called Fire. I'll start with Ali's first. The art was great in this book. but what wasn't great about this book is that it's so short. If you know nothing about Muhammad Ali's life, you know like very general things about his life, which is where I come from, this will teach you, doesn't really teach you much other than like what most of us know about his life. You know, boxer, you know, Nation of Islam, certain things like that. You know, him being jailed for not going to Vietnam War, so on and so forth. It does highlight his like 4 marriages though, but not in great depth. So yeah, I really wanted to like this book and I didn't, and I think I already said the artwork is really beautiful. Like I think it's just something about it, like the colors and just the artwork in general, how the pictures are drawn, how they're really lifelike is what made me want to read this book. But like I said, it's not enough. Oh, and they used the second person to write this book. Most people don't use the second person when they're writing because it's extremely hard to use it and make it plausible and for it to like sound right. So the second person, of course, like the first person is coming from I perspective. The third person is coming from like a they perspective, like an omniscient perspective. The second person uses the word you. Like somebody is, you know, it's still omniscient, but it's a little creepy. I distinctly remembering the first time I read a story, it was like a Joyce Carol Oates story that she used you, and it was about this like guy like stalking or watching this girl. It was really creepy, and maybe that's just my interpretation, but it's just kind of like this voyeuristic way of telling a story, and I did not like it for it because his story doesn't like. I didn't like that. I think I gave it like 3 or 4 stars on Goodreads, and I really want to like change it because the more I think about it, the more I don't like it. Same thing, unfortunately, with Fire, the Zora Neale Hurston story. I found the back where they had the blurbs of like, you know, he basically put notes in based on each page where of info and like real life facts, which are also in the book, but like I don't know, I can't explain it. I guess like where he's talking about like the actual sources he referenced, more helpful and interesting than this actual graphic novel. It was too short. I don't exactly like his style of artwork. I also thought that he consistently made Zora Neale Hurston out to be a frantic person. Like, maybe she was eccentric. I don't know much about her personally, but I always saw her as like this woman that was very confident, knew what she was doing, and that came across in the book. But after he made it like she was frantic all the time, and it was just, maybe her story just doesn't translate well into graphic novel form, and that's what I'm thinking. It's also too short. He had in the Ali book, at least they kind of broke the book up into chapters of according to like major incidences in Ali's life. That didn't happen here. It just kind of kept going. He mentioned how there are certain parts where it's undocumented what she was doing at certain parts in her life. It did not end necessarily with her death. It just kind of abruptly stopped. And I really disliked that. I think I gave this one 3 or 4 stars, 2 on Goodreads. And the more I think about it, I really don't like this book. Like, I think it deserves like a 2-star rating, and I might just go back and change it. I had a coworker who read biographies or autobiographies about Zora Neale Hurston. He said some of this information in this book is inaccurate. And so, no, I would definitely not suggest this book. I wouldn't suggest either of them unless maybe you're somebody who just likes reading about Muhammad Ali and you want that one to go ahead. But if you were like a Hurston scholar, I wouldn't even suggest picking this up. I want my money back. I'm probably going to put this in like a little free library somewhere around my city, so maybe somebody else will enjoy it. But to me, it's taking up space on my bookshelves, and I don't like it. I think if you want to know about Zora Neale Hurston, it's better to just pick up something else. I think what people are trying to do is they see the success of March, you know, John Lewis's graphic novel series, and trying to recreate that, but almost take like a shortcut in trying to put somebody's whole biography into like one book. His story, even though it spans about, okay, so March is framed as if John Lewis is thinking about his life on the first day of, not the first day, on Obama's first inauguration. But the book it spans between like the 1960 through 1968. It takes 3 books to get to 1968, and that spans about 8 years of John Lewis's life. That's it. Like, I don't think you can put a whole bio into one graphic novel. I really just don't think so. Like, Fun Home, which is a memoir. It's literally a memoir. It's not her entire life. It's what's, like, she feels like there are the important parts of her life into one book, and that worked. I'm not completely convinced that someone's full biography can be in one graphic novel book. That's all I gotta say. And I'm pretty much done with those books. All right, on to the other books. I have the Chibok Girls, the Boko Haram Kidnapping and Islamist Militancy in Nigeria by Helen Habila. I think that's his name. Very short book about the girls in Nigeria who were kidnapped by the military, not the military, this the extremist group. It left me wanting more, but I think if you want like a decent overview, like he actually went there, talked to people. It was actually reading some of this stuff. I don't know how they survived. Even talking about like the parents' grief, like some parents are still living, but a decent amount of the parents died from their own grief of, you know, seeing their girls be taken from them. Some have been released, and a lot of them have not come back. It's assumed that, you know, unfortunately they're dead. So I read this to fulfill my my book riot challenge of reading a book about war, and I think that this did a good job. I gave this book like 4 stars. Very, it actually does make me want to read another book about Boko Haram. And I think there's a book at my store that comes from the point of view specifically like some of the girls who came back and their experience, which this one they tried to get out of them, but it didn't seem like it really went anywhere. I think they were probably still too traumatized. The next book I read, China Rich Girlfriend, the second book in the Kevin Kwan series. It was fun. Definitely will be eventually picking up the 3rd book. I kind of wish I had this in paperback. I got this it was like one of the sale books in the store. I kind of wish I got it in paperback because my first one's in paperback, but it's okay. I will be giving this and the first book away once I read the 3rd one because they're fun, but I don't need to revisit them. This one, I think it was same level as Crazy Rich Asians. I think I enjoyed Crazy Rich Asians just a little bit more, but nonetheless, I still felt like this was an equally good follow-up to the first book. And I guess my star book of the month that I really enjoyed was Killers of the Flower Moon by David Graham. So this talks about how the Osage Indians were first put out of their own land in Oklahoma when like white settlers and of course Thomas Jefferson came in, had something to do with it as well, told them to move to the hills where they thought it was just rocks and dry land and that they couldn't do anything with that land. So they moved there, told them they could have that land while all these white settlers had the supposed good land in Oklahoma, and that the new hilly rocky land that the Osage Native Americans were on was their own, and that it can only be passed down through blood inheritance. Little did these white guys know that the land they moved them to had oil. So guess what? Later on, they decided to do. They decided to poison, shoot, murder, kill the living Osage Native Americans so they could get their fortune. And David Graham talks all about that. Talks about like the start of the FBI and so forth, on and so forth. Now, while I give this book 4 stars, I thought it was a good look into what happened, because they pinned the murders on one person, but more research shows that this was like a team job. Like, it was not only one person who thought this was a good idea and did it. But I was very disappointed that David Graham did not call this what it was, which was terrorism. He did not call it racism. Some of the living Osage Native Americans during the time were afraid to like eat and drink and leave their houses because people were getting poisoned and shot, you know, otherwise. So, you know, that's terrorism. So I get that he's like writing just about the crime and like the history behind it, but I think at the end of the day you need to call it what it is, and that's what he did not do. So that is my wrap up. Moving forward, I've been missing reading a lot of fiction, so you might have noticed that I did not read the book I had you guys choose last month. It was kind of like a toss-up between Dark Money and The Other Slavery, and that one is about Native American slavery. Dark Money is about like billionaires who are influencing like our government, and of course that helps no one but themselves. So what I've decided to do this month, I'm going to read those 2 books as far as nonfiction. And the rest of the books I'm going to read this month are going to be fiction. I don't know exactly how many fiction books I'm going to read. It's now July when I'm taping this. I already finished Hunger, so I guess I'm going to read 3 nonfiction books this month. And yeah, so the rest are going to be fiction. If you have any fiction picks that you think I should look into, I'm still not buying books right now, but I think that's what's lacking on my shelves. So let me know if there's anything good fiction you've read. What did you read last month? Leave it in the comments below, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.